He says to me, I want you to come and meet my family, come to my village. Yeah, okay, this is an adventure. So I know where there's a bus and they'll take us there, you know. 10 minutes after we got off this vehicle that took us there, a vehicle coming around the corner, and it's a Jeep. And it's full of guys with AK-47s, and he's gone, don't move. And I looked at Nami and he smiled at me, and I said, what's going to happen? He said, oh, they'll kill us and take your stuff. You know, they'll kill us and take your stuff.
They'll kill you?
Yeah, that's what he said to me. So I'm thinking, oh, fuck, this is the end of my life.
Hey folks, Pete here from Thairish Times. How are you doing? How's it going? What's the story, as we say in Ireland? So today we got a big one. We got Paul Wallis part 4. I told you it's coming, and we deliver here on Thairish Times. But anyway, before we get into Paul Wallis, check out the sky here. Look at this. Rainy season has arrived. We had a big downpour yesterday. We had a big downpour about an hour ago, and this big cloudy sky has been hanging over our heads now for the last couple of days. It's 3 p.m. at the moment. I could never stand up here if it was a normal sunny day with blue skies, because my pasty white Irish skin would become as red as a lobster. Anyway, I digress. Let's go inside and I'll tell you about Paul Wallis part 4. Alright, Paul Wallis part 4. We got 2 extreme travel stories from Paul, okay? And if you don't know who Paul is, he's a guy who spent the last 36 years in Thailand. He's given us 3 episodes already. Fantastic storyteller. Very happy to put his story on the channel. And yeah, part 4 is a really cool story as well. So what we're going to do now is, right, I've got part 4 coming today, and part 5 is going to come tomorrow. So obviously if you're watching this in the future, part 4 and part 5 will already be released. And part 5 was my personal favorite. A lot of emotion in part 5. I don't want to say too much. I'm actually editing part 5 at the moment, and yeah, quite emotional story, you know, real touching story part 5 is. Anyway, Paul said that's it. He said he's done 5 with us now, and he said he's had enough. He said he's bared his soul. However, the door is always open to you, Paul. I know you're going to be watching this, and you're a great storyteller, and I'm happy to have more of your stories on the channel. I think you're a gentleman. It's a pleasure to do these stories with you. Anyway, I digress again. I'm waffling again. Let's get into part 4. If you like this content, folks, please subscribe, share, and like. I'm not far away from hitting 20k. I'm so close to hitting 20k. Wow, what a journey it's been so far. Amazing, life-changing, really has. So hit that subscription button, leave me a comment, and let's go do part 4 with Paul. Paul Wallis, the man with the legendary stories.
Yes, I guess they are.
Old school traveling stories, and you have 2 extreme stories coming up for us today, and I actually don't know what you're going to say. Usually I have an idea, or I know what questions to ask, but I know these, but I don't with this one, and I purposely didn't want to know because I wanted my mind to be blown, because I think it will be here with these 2 stories. So
yes, it still blows me away thinking
over to you,
about
Paul.
it today. Right, the 2 most insane experiences I ever had in my traveling. We were going back now to probably 77, it may have been. I'd have been what? I'd have been 22, 23, and I was working on a moshav in the south of Israel. Now a moshav was like a kibbutz, except you got paid by the hour, you know, and we would get there for the picking season, and it was hard graft, you know. 5 o'clock in the morning you'd wake up and you'd wear all these warm clothes and gloves, and you'd get the tractor out and the trailer with all the empty crates, and it would be freezing. 2 hours later you're wearing your underwear, you know, it's just... So I'd worked there for a while, and I'd saved up a good $400, and that's a lot of money for me then. That was a lot of money for me. So I was very happy because I knew I would be going in across the border into a beautiful place called Dahab that I discovered on my previous trip. Beautiful little bay on the Red Sea with some of the best snorkeling in the world. And they were just Bedouin. It was a Bedouin settlement, you know, and there were little huts you could rent, and they did really good food. So of course my plan is to go there for at least a month, you know, have my snorkeling gear and everything. So I get to Eilat, to the border town, and I'm with a guy he looks Middle Easty, but he's obviously been to England or has something to do with England. I didn't really know him when we were working because we were different parts of the moshav, but I get to having a beer with him, and I said, where are we going to change our money? So he says, oh, don't worry about that, I know a great money changer, we'll get a better rate. So I gave him all my money, but first I says to him, please don't be offended, but can I have your passport till you get back? Yeah, no problem at all. So he gives me this Irish passport, thick one, 90-page one. Off he goes. I wait. After 2 hours, I know I've been ripped off. Somehow or other, this guy doesn't need this passport. He's probably got two, so he's going to say he's lost it, and he's ripped me off. So I got about $27. Ooh, that hurt. That one hurt. That was a low time, and I thought, what can I do now? I'm still going to Dahab, just going to have to cut my trip short and then go on to Cairo. So I go to Dahab and spend a week or so there, and I got about $11 left, and I'm like, okay, never been to Cairo before, now's as good a time as any. So I'm on this air-conditioned coach going from Dahab to Cairo, which was about a 7-hour trip, and I'm sitting near a Kiwi girl, nice girl, but she was like, how could I explain her? You know straight away listening to her that she's a very organized person. You know, she was on her gap year and has insurance and all this kind of thing. And she's asking me questions. Where are you going? So why are you going to Cairo? I said, I don't know yet, you know. And she asked me a few more questions, and then she turns to me and she says, hang on a minute, you've got no ticket to get home, you've got less than $30 to your name, you don't know anyone in Cairo. That's insane. And at that very moment, I still to this day do not know why I did it. I went, this is insane. And I got up and I walked to the front and I said to the driver, can you stop the bus over by that palm tree? And this is one black tarmac road that goes through this red, it looked like Mars, you know, but there's nothing there. And the guy says to me, no, you can't get off here, we got toilets. I said, no, you don't understand, I want to get off and get my backpack out. I'm getting off the bus here.
In the desert?
Yes. And this is about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The girl is beside herself. No, please don't do it. And I said, I don't know what, I'm going to do it. So she gave me a bottle of water, a packet of cigarettes, and I watched this bus go down the road, and I thought, my God, you've done it now. Your mother's going to get a telegram a couple of years from now from the embassy saying they found some bones in the Sinai desert, and with the passport we think it's your son, you know. And I really thought I've gone too far. So I'm under the shade there. I look at what I've got water, I'm not going to go out in the sun, so I'll wait till it gets dark. So before it gets dark, these 3 guys come over the hill on camels, all with the wrapped up face and that, and they came over and not a word was spoken, and they circled me. And as they're circling me, one of them threw something down heavy, and it landed right in front of me on my mat. It was a tin of Libby's peaches. And I'm like, wow. They rode off. I got my knife out, I opened it, I ate the peaches and drank the juice and marveled at how crazy things, this is really going to be. I was scared, to be honest with you, Pete, I was scared. I thought, you've overdone it this time. I spent a cold night, got my sleeping bag out, I spent a cold night, and at first dawn, they came back. And again, not a word was spoken. They circled me. One of them picked up my pack and put it on his thing, on the camel, and the other bits, and then the other one beckoned me, and they took me about 20 minutes over this hill to their encampment. And a guy came over and he looked at me and he says, all right, mate, got a light? He spoke Cockney, pure Cockney, and he was just one of these Bedouin guys, you know, Raja his name was. You speak English? And he says, yeah. Apparently what had happened, about a year before, a Brit had maybe done something similar to me. Well, I don't know his story, but he ended up with the Bedouins for a whole year. And this guy taught this guy Raja to speak English. And they were great people. I spent, how long did I? It must be 10, 11 weeks with them, learning about their lifestyle. They didn't just stop in one place. They went all along the peninsula, and they had food stored in places. They knew where water was. They used to make baskets and mats and things like that and sell them, and they were wonderful people. And they were really curious about me and my life, and it was really hard to communicate. I only communicated through Raja, you know. And I felt invincible. I felt invincible, people. And after 11 weeks, I said to them, I want to go to Cairo. So they took me back to exactly the same place where I got dropped off. And exactly the same bus came along, and exactly the same driver, and he stopped and he got out and he went down on his knees and he went, Allah, praise be to Allah, you're alive. And I'm like, yeah, I'm alive. Invincible, I felt, invincible. So I journeyed on to Cairo. And I met a young guy called Nami, Sudanese guy, as black as that chair. Wonderful set of teeth, unlike me. And I really connected with him. He spoke good English. And after a few days of being there, he says to me, we're staying in this cheap hotel. It cost about 4 Egyptian pounds a night, which was 50 pence in those days. He says to me, I want you to come and meet my family, come to my village. Yeah, okay, this is an adventure. What he failed to tell me was that there was a civil war going on in Sudan. And so he said, we're going to go at night. You know, it'll only be half an hour. There'll be a bus. I know where there's a bus, and they'll take us there. You know, not going to be a long trip. So I'm like, yeah, okay, great. So I have everything I've got. You know, my backpack, and Nami's got his bag, and we were probably 10 minutes after we got off this vehicle that took us there. We hear a vehicle coming around the corner, and it's a Jeep. And it's full of guys with AK-47s, and he's gone, don't move. So we just stood there like that, and they pulled up and they jumped out and they knocked Nami about a bit, and I'm, oh shit, you know. Got us in the back of their truck, and there's 3 of them standing up, 3 in the cab, and they're driving all up, and we're going along, and I looked at Nami, and he smiled at me, and I said, what's going to happen? He said, oh, they'll kill us and take your stuff. You know, they'll kill us and take your stuff.
They'll kill you?
Yeah, that's what he said to me. At that moment, I knew what it felt like for a condemned man to be told, well, okay, your execution's going to take place at that.
What was the feeling?
It was like my very being left me, you know. And I looked at him, and he seemed so au fait with it. Like I said in the book, The Wanderer's Words, I'll never forget once seeing a baby fawn in Africa somewhere where the lioness has just got it, and she's got her neck around it, and she's walking along with it, and then she stops for a rest and lets go of it, and it just stands there, almost like it knows what's coming. So I'm thinking, oh fuck, this is the end of my life. We had a 20-minute journey. During that journey, I'd already figured out the only thing I thought we could do. I had at least 7 journal books, all full of handwriting in my back. And I said to Nami, when we get to see the leader, you tell him I'm a BBC journalist and you were paid to get me across the border because we want to hear the rebel side of the war, not just the government. Tell him that, and show him my books. we just have to hope that they can't read English. You know, they certainly couldn't speak English. So we arrive at this place and we get taken to this guy, and he's just like you would imagine in a movie, you know, eyes like the devil, as black as you like. He's quite plump, and you can quite clearly see he's the boss. So this guy starts, you know, Nami starts talking to him, and he gets up and he comes over and he looks at me. He goes over to my bag and he starts throwing things out of it, you know. And there's guys with machine guns everywhere. There's no way we're going anywhere. And he starts looking at them. And he issues his orders, and we're all moved off, and we go into this tent, and he's got a bottle of whiskey there, and he opens the bottle up, and he gives me the bottle, the full bottle, and he said, oh my God, my last drink. You know, he's going to take me outside and shoot me. So I take the drink, and then he offers it to Nami, and then he starts talking to Nami. He says, right, he says he's going to tell you everything you need to know, and you're going to write it down, and he's going to make sure that we get back to the border, and so our side of the story can be heard. And the next 3.5 hours, this guy wouldn't stop talking. He's walking around with the bottle of whiskey in his hand, and he's translating it to me about the corruption and the bad things they've done to their people and all this. And I'm writing, but what I'm writing is actually, my God, this is just unbelievable. My life is hanging by a thread here. I just pray that nothing goes wrong. And the more we got into it, the more relaxed I became. I suddenly realized, no, this guy's made his mind up that he wants to tell his story. So, you know, within 3 or 4 hours, we were back on the border and we were heading back to Cairo again. And when I looked at Nami, when this was all over, and said to him, you just didn't seem bothered, and you never told me. And he said, life's cheap, you know. And I honestly, Pete, I have to say, that incident stopped me pushing further to the edge. That and the desert incident, I never ever went that far again. And I just felt so blessed that I survived it.
Do you still have the journals?
Some of them I think I might, yes. Some of them I think I might, yeah.
I'd love to see the writing, what you actually wrote in that moment where you thought you were going to be brought outside and shot.
Writing the book in 2015, you know, one of my friends says to me, he'd known me since I started traveling, really. He's known me for 50 years. He says, you've got to put all this stuff down on paper.
And if you put that in this book?
Yes.
And the name of the book is?
A Wanderer's Words.
We'll link it in the description.
It starts with my childhood at about 8 years old and goes right through to me arriving in Thailand, and writing that book in 2015 brought all those memories back, and I thought to myself, wow, you know, I did all that. And it kind of gave me a really warm, nice feeling inside, knowing that, you know, I survived so much shit. I really did. There were lows, you know, there's been lots of lows in my life. I was sectioned for 28 days under the Mental Health Act, but perhaps we'll get into that on the other one. But yeah, there's been some dark times for me. I tried to take my life once, and thankfully I wasn't successful, but it was a serious attempt. And yeah, I got through that. Yeah. Now I wouldn't ride a motorcycle without wearing a helmet, you know.
You've gone completely
I've gone
180.
completely the other way, because, you know, I mean, Michael Schumacher, let's take him for example. He was an F1 driver, you know, risking his life every day, and he got killed skiing because he didn't wear a helmet. So I kept thinking to myself, you know, imagine if I got electrocuted or something while I'm sitting at home, you know, something silly like that. So I'm very careful with my personal safety now, yeah. I cringe at the thought of doing anything risky.
So Paul, you've done a lot of traveling, right? It's very obvious. How did you make travel work for you?
Okay.
Like, you've traveled, was it 60 countries?
Yes, I think it's more than that now, but yes.
What did you, like, money-wise, how did you make it work?
Okay, well, my dad taught me that if you're a good worker, if you have a great work ethic, and you do as much for you as you can for your employer, whatever you get paid for it, and have high standards, you'll never be out of work. He used to say that to me, you'll never be out of work, son. You know, and I'd wash his car, I'd be about 14, expecting to get 10 shillings, you know, and he'd look at the car and he'd say, you missed that line there. You didn't hit that wheel hub completely there, did you? And so he kind of drained that into me. So I had rules when I travelled. I was always friendly, I was always polite. Whenever I got a job, I did as much as I could, and I was very respectful of the culture that I was in, and that is probably the reason why I got so much work. I went to towns and there'd be 4 or 5 young backpackers like me, and they go, there's no work here. So I'd have a beer, and then I'd just walk up to a hotel door, knocked on the door, I said, you got any work to do? Can you drive? She said, yep. Okay, well I want you to drive this truck up there, and I want you to pull all these weeds out, and I got a job straight away. Because it's a numbers game. You know, if you ask enough people, can I do anything for you? You know, I'm a good physical worker. Eventually you're going to get someone who will say, yeah, you can. So I have a good work ethic.
What do you think of the backpackers of today, right? Because you seem to be what I would say is hardcore pre-internet days backpacker, right? Compared to today, where everyone's on Instagram and you know backpacking is a lot easier.
They're so lucky, Pete. They're so lucky. I mean, when I was 20 and gallivanting around Europe, it would take at least 10 days for me to get a reply to a letter I would send to England, and I'd have to have a post box for that, you know. I was generally on my own. So yeah, it's a totally different world. And I think, okay, you're never going to be able to travel as easily as I did through Europe in those days. Visas were given to Brits on arrival at every country, you know. You could never travel like I did then, but that doesn't mean to say you can't have amazing experiences, because I believe you can. Yes, it's great. I mean, you know, you're never going to get lost. You know, you can be talking to your family and friends while amazing things are happening to you. Imagine if I'd have had that when I'd have been in the desert, the bedouins, you know, hey guys, look at this, check this out. So yeah, technology's a great thing.
I know, but I've had some great adventures. When you mentioned about getting lost, I've had some great adventures when my phone batteries died and I had no connection to the internet.
Yes.
And you literally, because you're going on a different level, you're on instinct then, and you're sussing out people, you're reading people, good or bad.
I've noticed people have mentioned in the comments of these, why would you spend all your money when you get to a place? But what people have to understand is, I'd done that so much, deliberately spent all my money, because great things happened to me that wouldn't have happened to me if I'd had money. I didn't do it all the time, but when it felt right, I would do it, you know. One time I had no money, and I'd hitchhiked to this village in Yugoslavia, and there was a war memorial, and I'm sat there, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, it's very cold, and I've got a few cigarettes, and I said, shit, what am I going to do? You know, what am I doing here? And I just sat there and I smoked a cigarette, and just before dawn, this guy came along with a German Shepherd, and the dog cocked its leg and peed against my backpack, and the guy went, oh, sorry, and I went, no, it's okay, don't worry about it, and they disappeared, and about 20 minutes later they came back, and he said to me, come, and somebody at his house could speak a bit of English, and he gave me a job, and I worked for him for 5 months. Great family. He used to lend me his car to go into the village and drink wine with the local old guys, and yeah, wonderful experiences. And I not always, but I pushed my luck, and to the point where I couldn't push it anymore, and then stepped back and thought, thank God I managed to survive it. And I was invincible at one point. I hitchhiked from Crete, from the island of Crete to Windsor, and it took me 11 days. I had $10, and right in the middle of the trip was the lowest of low time. I'd been walking along an autobahn, and you're not supposed to do that with a backpack on, all my gear. and the heavens opened, and I had to walk 3 kilometers until there was the rest place where you have the toilets and the fuel and all that. So I got there, and I was absolutely drenched, and I slept one night underneath the concrete underpass between the two lanes. I thought I'd be safe there, so I slept there. And I woke up I didn't sleep, I just laid there shivering all night, and this was one of the lowest times I'd had, and I had about $8 in my pocket. And I got up and I managed to find my cigarettes. They were in a bag with an elastic bag so they wouldn't get wet. And the water's running past as I got to the end of the underpass, and I lit my cigarette, and as I lit it, I dropped it, and the packet went on the floor, and they went float. And I thought to myself, lowest of lows. I got my gear together, I went under the roof where the cafeteria bit was. I wanted to go and take a pee, but I wasn't going to leave my backpack there, so I asked this driver if he'd stop and watch my pack for 2 minutes, and he did, and I went and had a pee and came back, and on the way back I saw another driver, and he says, "Well, you look a bit wet through, mate." London accent. I says, "Yeah, I am, yeah." "Where are you going?" I says, "Back to the UK." "Where?" "Windsor." "I'll take you right to your door, mate." "Yeah, go get your wet stuff. Let's get you into some dry gear." Gave me a t-shirt, a pair of trousers. I had a wash up, and he smuggled me onto the ferry at Dover in his sleeper cab, and gave me a hearty breakfast on the ferry, bought me a carton of 200 cigarettes, and took me all the way to my best friend's house in Windsor, and wanted nothing in return. Boy, did I go from a down to an up.
Wow.
In just one go. And I just couldn't believe it. And I kept going, I said, "You really are going to Windsor, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah, don't worry about it." He says, "I'll take you all the way home." And I'd had 9 days to get that far. I'd had to get through Yugoslavia, and you weren't allowed to hitchhike in Yugoslavia in those days. It was a communist country. And I'd been through some bad stuff to get there, but I got back. It was wonderful. And I spent the summer working in England, carrying the hod, saving up all my money, and come August, away I went again.
Fantastic. Well, look, I have to keep you on track now, because I can tell you're gonna go into the next story, which is actually going to be the next video, right? So we're going to stop it now. We're going to go straight into the next video, right? So let me shake your hand. Love to shake your hand after a good story, right?
Okay, wonderful.
So anyway, like I just said, we're going to have another video here with Paul, and that is going to be the last video Paul's ever going to do.
Yes, my face will never ever again be seen on YouTube or any other platform.
All right, we'll sort that out. We'll explain why in the next video. So please, if you're not already subscribed, subscribe, hit the like button. You don't want to miss the next one. Leave us a comment. What did you think? And yeah, gobsmacked is the word for me right now, but it is what it is. Let's do it. Next video.